And tonight, for our public conversation, we're so pleased to be able to welcome the Reverend Dr. Vonnetta L. West. Dr. West is a cultural consultant, a leadership strategist, a nonviolence educator, and a learning experience curator, known for her subject matter knowledge in the areas of neighboring well, strategies for sustainable change, the teachings of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and connecting faith with good works, facets of justice, and civic accountability. Dr. West is a speaker and moderator, helping groups and individuals promote a culture of honor, inspired leadership, courageous, hopeful engagement. She's taught around the nation and around the world, from the University of Arkansas to the King Center in Atlanta to Monrovia Bible College in Monrovia, Liberia, and now at Yale. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
A pastor, a visionary leader, a transformative teacher. We're so pleased to welcome you to Yale Divinity School. We began our class this afternoon and have had a good afternoon together, and that class will continue all day tomorrow. But tonight we're inviting others into this public conversation. In conversation with Dr. West this evening is the Reverend Dr. Tony Tian-Ren Lin, the Associate Director and Director of Research at the Yale Center for Public Theology and Public Policy, and a Presbyterian minister. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you. Thank you to all the students and staff and friends who are here, and thank you for all of you watching from all over the world, I guess. And Reverend Vonnetta, let's start by hearing about you. Some of us have had the privilege of sitting in the class, hearing some amazing things. But for those who are just coming in and those who are watching from home, tell us about you and how you came into this work.
Bill read all of that. I'm have to come up with something other than what he just read.
Yep. Tell us your origin story.
My
since
origin
you're
story?
Yeah, that's right. What
I
did you want to do when you were growing up?
I love a good superhero story. My origin story, I am a product of Alabama, small town upbringing. Mm-hmm. Both of my parents eventually were servants and caregivers. My mom was a nurse. She was a geriatric nurse too, which is a different. Mm-hmm. I saw my mom do some things that I said, I know I'm not called to nursing. My dad eventually was an alcohol and drug abuse counselor, and so I come to the place of serving, honestly, is what I saw growing up. I'm a student of Dr. King's teaching since I was a 17-year-old at Booker T. Washington High School in Tuskegee, Alabama. And I just continued on that path of studying and eventually started to format trainings based on his teachings, and then met his daughter and joined the King Center staff and just started to move into developing conversations and practical teachings and workshops on what we can do, not only with nonviolence, but with creating a culture of honor and getting rid of biases and just overall being better humans. Wouldn't it just be great if we could just be more humane human beings?
Yeah,
that's ultimately what I want my work to lead to.
Tell us a bit more about the practical aspect of your work, right? You're a nonviolence training senior trainer at the King Center. You do workshops. You travel all around the world. What in practice, right? When you show up at a community, what happens? What do you do? What do you take them through?
What do I take them through?
Yeah, what do you...
I don't beat them up, Tony. I first ask, what type of community do you want to be? And that's the first question I would ask anyone. What type of person do you want to be? Normally, when somebody has invited me in, even though they may try to hide it, it's because there's a problem. Like, you don't typically invite a nonviolence trainer in because there's no violence. There's usually something's happening. Even when I'm invited in to talk about creating a culture of honor, usually it's because somebody's been dishonored. And so the first place to start is, who do you want to be? Like, I would invite anyone who's listening now or in this room with us just to ask, what type of human being do I want to be? If you start a community or a person there, then that's level setting. That's getting to a place where you say, okay, I can work with that. If you tell me we want to be an honorable community, I can help you get there. You can start out with what are you doing that does not demonstrate honor and that is not nonviolent. And then what are you willing to do? What are you willing to invest? So it starts with an assessment, but a challenge to answer the question, what do we want to be? So I think all of humanity needs to answer that at this point.
Yeah, right.
Individually and then collectively, corporations, government officials, legislative bodies, institutions, everybody. Who do we want to be?
In the age of distraction, this type of self-reflection, right, is getting pushed out. And I think, yeah, that's the ultimate question. Philosophers have always
Be higher
sought
than
to
what do
ask.
you want to do?
Exactly.
I don't even ask children anymore, what do you want to do? I think that's so low level, but kind of,
yeah.
who do you want to be?
Yeah, and it's neoliberalist nonsense, right?
It's huge.
Like, you have to be productive. Why?
You
Right?
can say you want to be a doctor, but you could be a terrible doctor. You could be an inhumane doctor.
Yeah.
You'd say, I want
Yeah.
to be a lawyer. I want to be a politician, but you could be an inhumane politician. I think the being is much more powerful than the doing.
Yeah. So in having done this for so long, share some anecdotes or some of the highlights of the training that you did this and you're proud to have done it, or some accomplishments.
Highlights. Wow.
Yeah.
I was a part of the King Center team that was in Ferguson shortly after Mike Brown was killed. Just in terms of community and witnessing of people grieving, but determined to come together, that was high for me. I've trained some educators in Ghana, West Africa, 400 teachers that we've taken through teachers training, just talking to them, training them on how to teach with excellence and with care for students. I've been to South Africa doing similar teachings. New Zealand was so far away. I feel like I'm still there, honestly. It was years ago. That was a long flight, Tony. But it really, just the culture, the pride that the indigenous people have there. Wherever I've been, I think I've tried to learn something from the people I've encountered, because that's a part of being a great teacher. It's being a great student, learning from people. You mentioned your work with the King Center, and I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more. There's a misconception, right, even around Atlanta, that the King Center is mostly just a museum of ideas and whatnot. But it's a very active. Dr. Bernice King, she's out there doing a lot of stuff right now, right? So tell us a bit more about what the King Center is doing. If you're watching now, Dr. Bernice King, you're the reason why I'm tired right now. I'm going to tell her I said that and ask her to tune in. No, it's very active. There is a misconception that it's a museum, but it's not. Mrs. King, Coretta Scott King, wanted it to be a living memorial to her husband, and in addition to that, she said she wanted it to be a West Point for nonviolence. She wanted it to be where people from all over the world come to train and learn, not just about Dr. King, but they learn the tactics, the strategy, and the philosophy of nonviolence. So we do at the King Center, even though I'm currently in a different role than I came in as. I started in 2014 as the Director of Education and Training. And my last role there, full-time role, was Chief Content Officer. So I develop a lot of the content and the trainings for the King Center. But the King Center does nonviolence trainings for corporations, for schools, for students. We have a Students with King reading program, a Beloved Community Leadership Academy for teens. There are a number of things that the King Center is very much engaged in. It is not, as Mrs. King would say, a dead memorial. It's active. Just this King holiday, we had a Beloved Community Summit. We had some screenings of some films. And so we just try to engage youth, the corporate sector. We've had some trainings for law enforcement. So anywhere where we see nonviolence would be beneficial, the King Center tries to engage that community in the work.
Is there an organization or a place that you were surprised to ask to go do a training? Are there really unusual organization that you didn't think they would need something like this? And
No, I can't say I've been surprised. Sometimes when organizations are in trouble, they come to the King Center, right? It's like the equalizer, but nonviolent. Because the King Center, it at least will look like you're trying, which we try to be careful with, because we don't want to be used to create the facade either that somebody's trying to be something that they're not. But I can't say I've been surprised by any group of people. Everybody that's come, I think they've been in a place where they needed it.
Take us just in what you were saying on that discerning carefully who's inviting you so that you're not used. I think every person of color, certainly in this room, and leader of color knows how it is to be used in that way.
To be a token?
Yeah, and then to say,
You probably didn't want to say that word, but I'm a guest, so I'll come say all the things.
But also as the most superficial way to solve a deep problem, right? That we saw this in the last 5 years. All the chief DEI officers, senior provost of DEI, and they were all cosmetic things. They weren't interested really in changing anything. They just appointed a person of color, and I'm sure we both have friends who were appointed in those places and extremely frustrated and left. Some of you left and ended up maybe in seminary because you were so frustrated at that work, right? So how do you think through that and decide whether you go?
I can't say that I've looked at it in terms of having to make a decision based on that. I will say that I just try to take care with my energy, period. That even if somebody really needs it, I can't go everywhere. I can't be everywhere. And so I'm careful in that sense. Also, people felt the pressure after George Floyd was killed. That was a seminal moment for this country. Unfortunately, as Dr. King said in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, and also in a speech he gave called The Other America, we face what's called the white backlash, where when there starts to be any measure of progress in terms of working on racism, institutionally and overtly, there's a backlash to get back to where we were before, or to even go beyond that and to digress further back, because there's a fear of giving up power. And so I just try to be by divine inspiration wherever I'm supposed to be, which meant for me never getting into the DEI space in terms of my work. I think what we need as human beings is much larger than just diversity and equity and inclusion, because you can have all of those things and still not have justice. And I think justice is a much higher spiritual, moral place than just having different people around. And until we decide that we want to engage each other in a humane way, it won't matter how different we are. We'll be a bunch of different people together killing each other, but we'll have diversity. And I think my concern is much bigger than that. And when I go to an organization, I've looked at people and they said they had DEI, but in the culture, there was still such a racism or misogyny or transphobia or homophobia, because different doesn't get rid of those things. It's good. Right. You just don't want to, be a monolithic, but it doesn't get rid of injustice.
Yeah.
It's like U2, one of my favorite songs. They say, love is the higher law. Love is a temple. There's something much deeper that we're missing as human beings. We try to fix it with all these other things. Yeah, we stay at the superficial level, right? But we don't get at the roots of our challenges. So you're here this weekend to teach about nonviolence in an extremely and increasingly publicly violent world. I would say the world and this country has always been violent, but the violence we're looking at today, right? It's publicly justified and accepted in a way that it wasn't before, right?
I know with Dr. King, even those who killed him had to prop up somebody else to blame because they knew it was wrong. But today, the people doing the killing, they are in the highest office in this land, justifying those killings. So in the face of that, right, how do we justify nonviolence as the mean to combat something such an in-your-face type of inhumane worldview?
Since this is Divinity school, I feel comfortable using this comparison. You know how in Scripture, the story is told about how if you put a spirit out of the house, you really have to clean it. It'll go and get 7 more and come back. That's what I think happens with racism and violence and militarism and poverty and all these different evils and injustices that we're dealing with. We don't sufficiently clean house. Like when I decided personally I wanted to get rid of bias and isms, I cleaned house. And nobody could convince me otherwise. And because of my faith tradition, people tried to say, no, you shouldn't clean transphobia out of your house. There's something still wrong with that. Clean racism out, but don't get rid of transphobia. But you shouldn't clean this particular bias out, because white people have done all these things, so you should still have a little contempt for white people. But when you get ready to clean stuff out and you really want to be a humane person, you got to clean it out. And this country refuses still to clean house. We think it's some things we can hold on to. And there's the backlash. We face always this backlash of when you make progress, you have to come back. And I do believe we can start to work on that. I mean, we have what people didn't have in the 60s. We have social media and technology. If we would use it for these good things, like start some campaigns where we start to say, we're not going back. Dr. Bernice King said that in her call to commemoration on MLK Day just a few days ago. We're not going back. But there has to be a determination in us to do that. And the world is remarkably violent. Remarkably so. I think there's so much that we're seeing from our video games to our music, and there are things that reinforce violence, that we have to be careful, that we do the opposite. That's all I can do. It's the opposite of what's harmful. And then higher than that, I think there's such a higher place where God is, that even people who may say they study God and they belong to God and they follow God, so many of us aren't trying to get there. But I think there's a high place and a connected place that we can get to that allows us to see human beings much differently. That we're supposed to be there, right? Because if I'm a leader and I'm following God, why would I act like everybody else?
Yeah. Or why would you act like the very oppressors you're trying to remove, right? Which I think is one of the reasons why we have an increase of violence in this world, because when Dr. King was leading the movement, right, it was love against hate. Now, increasingly, unfortunately, we see hate against hate, right? And love is almost a weakness, right? We've removed the element.
But Dr. King's brand of love wasn't what people would normally think love is.
Exact, yes. Tell us more. Tell us more.
It wasn't, when I hear the word love today, you automatically may think something sappy, something weak. That wasn't what when he says hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that, you think about something driving something out. It is that when I show up, you can't exist. And that's a spiritual posture, that's a mental posture that we have to get back to, I believe. That's that thing that the people were mad because Jesus was healing on the Sabbath. And Jesus was like, I'm Jesus. I can heal any day I want to. When I show up, sickness is supposed to leave because of who I am. And if I'm a vessel for love, when I show up, hate is supposed to leave because of who I am. But if we don't think we have that type of power anymore, that's the problem. But Dr. King believed when he showed up with soul force, he could meet physical force with something it couldn't contain. But if that's no longer the belief, and I start to think when I meet physical force, I have to meet it with physical force too, then I've lost my power. Because there's something deeper than physically fighting. If I can get in a spiritual fight, then I've started to win the battle.
So have you seen this, especially in recent years, let's say the last 5 years or so, right? Have you seen either people you've worked with or movement that you've led where they were successful at doing this?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had the man who is right here at Yale. I've been at protests with Reverend Barber, where I have witnessed, and I was telling the class the story earlier. That was you. It was you, Tony, and Bill. I was at a protest with Reverend Barber, and I told Reverend Barber, I can't be arrested tonight, Reverend Barber. I can't be arrested today. I got to teach a class. I was teaching a direct action class that night, and Reverend Barber didn't care about my class. And he said, Dr. West, when we walk into this Capitol building in Tennessee, I want you to come in right behind me. And I was like, sir, I just said I can't be arrested today. And so I'm going in, I'm on video, it's streaming, and Dr. Bernie said, she sends me a text. She said, don't you have a class to teach tonight? Why are you positioned to be arrested today? It's like, ma'am, I don't know. If I go to jail, do you have anybody to teach the class? No, you're the only one there that can teach the class. Well, I saw Reverend Barber. As state troopers started to come, we're trying to take these coffins to demonstrate the dangers of gun violence onto the house floor, onto the floor in Tennessee. And the state troopers start to come. Reverend Barber starts to sing, I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. And I'm standing behind him thinking, I wonder how this is gonna work out, because these state troopers don't look like they care about this freedom song. But it calmed the tension to the extent he met that physical force with soul force. He's such a student of nonviolence. And I've witnessed other situations too where, depending on how you go in, I'm not saying it'll stop you from going to jail. Sometimes they would sing freedom songs in the 60s. They still went to jail, but they knew that was what they were willing to do. I mean, it postures you to practice nonviolence in that moment, so that if somebody hits you, you don't hit them back and take the focus off of the issue. It's what nonviolence does. It keeps the focus on the issue. See, if I'm fighting in the streets, people have forgotten why I even protested. Because the story becomes these protesters are fighting in the streets instead of look at them marching to end gun violence in that state.
Yeah, absolutely. We're blessed at Yale Divinity School to have Reverend Barber here. So that when you said you told him you couldn't go, but he told you come along, we all know what that means. And Reverend Barber says come along.
I mean, I didn't feel like it was a request, honestly.
Nope.
It was like, Dr. West, you're coming with me. Okay.
Yep. You had mentioned that something that would be helpful to this generation, and especially in our moment now, was Dr. King's idea of creative maladjustment, right? Tell us more about that. What did Dr. King mean when he was talking about
well, he
creative
talked about,
maladjustment?
in particular in a sermon that he gave, Transform Nonconformists, that there should be some things that we refuse to adjust to. That, of course, he wasn't saying be mentally unstable, but there should be some things in society to which we look at and say, I refuse to adjust to that. And by now, we should have a long list, right? Like pages of, I won't adjust to this. And in making those assertions that I'm going to be creatively maladjusted, I open myself up to being a vessel for change. But as long as I'm in agreement and I'm not open to consciousness, which is, Tony, a key thing for me, I think the best thing I can do in some situations is give people and myself an opportunity for consciousness. People gave it to me. I didn't always know what I know, but I came into spaces and somebody was talking about something and I was open to consciousness and to greater awareness, and I received it. And so I think so often we shut the door to being vessels for just people learning and growing. And I hear so many activists saying, I'm tired of training people. I don't want to train these folks. I don't want to do this. I wouldn't even call it training sometimes. I just think, even now, if somebody's listening to us and they say, wow, I think differently about that, that could be a starting point for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're unwilling to admit that we may have had our own bias, it's like, anybody here, you had a bias before? I'm saying, y'all honest people, thank you. Sometimes I ask people that question, they don't put their hands up.
They were always
tall,
woke.
man, I know
They were
I'm
born
telling you.
woke. Some people
They
just.
ain't
this
even
is
got
Yale.
to get woke. That's how they started. They came out.
Yep.
But if we're honest, then we say, I didn't always think what I think about some things. And so the value is in how can I be a vessel for awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That is not always training. I might not ever get a chance to train some people, but I can spark a conversation. I really can. I was sharing with the class, even at Thanksgiving, I don't mind. You know, let the turkey be ruined.
Yeah. And going back to what you were saying earlier about humanity, right? It's not about training people. It's about helping people be more human, right? John Calvin has this part in the Institute where he says that you don't know yourself until you know God, and you don't know God until you know yourself, right? Because we're made in the image of God, right? And the more we practice this love, right, we're helping people be more the way God created us to be, right? And that's the ultimate goal for all people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's a hard place, even, you know. It's one of the reasons why I struggled and had to adjust some things concerning my faith traditions and church, because a lot of what I was experiencing was people trying to make other people be something instead of being an atmosphere. Like, if I'm an atmosphere for grace and for love and for peace, that's much more prone to change a culture and change an environment than me telling somebody, I want you to believe exactly what I believe. Like, what if I really believe I'm supposed to be salt and light, as Christ dictates and says we should be? Then I show up differently versus saying, I want to convince you to be just like me. What if I say, I want to show you so much love and kindness that you say, what is it that you believe? How can I learn more about that? Because I don't see that often. Then that's a different dimension, I think, than trying to make somebody engage a doctrine.
Yeah. And in talking about the process of growth and change, right? There's a lot of studies now that shows that you can't change people's minds, right? Through argument, facts, people are not going to change their minds. The ways you can change people's mind is through love and beauty, right? And that's why music is so important in these movements. You're not going to change them by arguing, but if they can, if you can show them love, if you can help them fall in love, right? If they can be, mesmerized by beauty, they'll change, right?
But that reminds me too of the twofold work of nonviolence. Like, nonviolence doesn't ask that we wait for people's hearts and minds to change to get justice. I just want to clarify that Dr. King said that a law might not make a man love me, but it can stop him from lynching me. So there's this understanding that while you're working on your heart change, we need for these laws to change. And what nonviolence does as direct action, as negotiation, as advocacy, as protest, is it puts a demand on other people to change policy. Like, you might not change your heart right now, but if I take my money out of your company, you'll change your policy. I love you.
Yes.
But you can't keep killing us. And that's love too. You know?
Yeah. And this is, I think this is why policy and nonviolence and explicitly loving are key, right? Because through nonviolent policy change, you're changing the law, so there's a practical implication. But in the meantime, you're not making enemies, right? You're trying to love even the people who are in opposition of your love.
Sure.
Laws.
You're not trying to make enemies, but Dr. King had enemies. That's why he's gone. When you really think about it, there will always be people who oppose justice just because people love power. And what justice does is it forces a sharing of resources. It forces equity, but it doesn't diminish people. See, the thing about nonviolence is it will not try to defeat injustice with injustice. And one of the things I was always concerned about is, becoming the monsters that I sought to oppose. I used to do trainings in my 20s and my early 30s where if I had contention or bitterness about a particular people group, I tried to make them cry in training. And I was successful. Yeah, because I was trying to train people on how to change society with hate and bitterness in my heart. So the outcome was not that we can learn to live together, but really, if you try to teach people how to change culture with bitterness and wrath, then the end result will be contempt in somebody and an enemy out of somebody. I got called to my CEO's office several times for making people cry in training. I was very intelligent. I could twist things a certain way. I'll tell you, I had a lady say in a training, I don't know why we always have to talk about racism. I'm from Norway, and we didn't have anything to do with racism. And I was like, really? And so I went through a history lesson in front of 100 other people. And by the time I was done, she was weeping. And I was glad. And then I had to learn that wasn't who I wanted to be. I enjoyed it in the moment, I thought. But it wasn't who I wanted to be, because you're trying to drive out hate with it. Yeah. So I see that often, that people think the response to racism or any ism is to make the perpetrator cry and to make them suffer too. But that doesn't get rid of the hate and the racism.
Yeah. So getting back to the idea of creative maladjustment, what does that look like today as somebody who practices it and has been able to adopt it, right? For those of us who are just maladjusted, not creative or in any effective sense, what advice do you have for the rest of us who are trying to get there?
Be disciplined in it. Be willing to seem strange at times, to write down affirmations, to say weird statements to yourself. I mean, I spent 6 months walking around my house saying, I will not be a bigot. I will not be a bigot. Just because I was interfacing with a lot of people who were bigots. And I had realized some bigotry in myself. And I had to make a confession. This is not who I will be. I will not do this. I will not be a bigot toward any group of people. So you have to have the same practice you have when you do anything else. If you're serious and you're committed to it, I will not adjust to this. And while other people are saying, oh, this just happens all the time, I'm still in the room saying, yeah, but let's not adjust to this. This is not who we want to be. So you have to be intentional about it. I'm very intentional about my mind. I just am. And my soul.
Tell us more. What does that practice look like?
My 3 sisters laugh all the time because they say, we don't know anything else about you. You're going to care about your soul. I am. I'm very concerned. I think there are a lot of things that snatch your soul out there that cause you to be a dark person, a hateful person. And so I just guard my soul and my heart with a lot of things. I used to love this song by DMX. Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. Party Up is the actual name of the song. Did y'all know that? Y'all real hip hop folks. Yes. Yeah. So I would go to work listening to this song. It didn't work out well, I tell you. Because I worked with some people that they tried to make me lose my mind. And I really found, and people think I'm fully joking when I say this, that what I was putting in my mind was impacting how I engage people. I have to be very intentional. One of the ways I do that, excuse me, right in the microphone, I'll cough that way next time, is with music. I make playlists for everything. Like going to a protest today, playlist, what I want to listen to on the way, because it helps get me ready. And excuse me, if I want to be creatively maladjusted, then music plays a big role in that for me. You don't want DMX Vonnetta out there protesting.
Mm-hmm.
We fighting today? That's what we're doing. Or do you want a Vonnetta who's listened to maybe some freedom singers, some
Mm-hmm.
Marion Williams, and even today some of the artists
Mm-hmm.
that will help us be prepared?
Yeah. We might ask you to share your playlist with the rest of us.
I'd be
before you
glad to
leave.
share it with you. It's a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
U2's on there. Stevie Wonder. You can't have a good creative maladjustment playlist without Stevie Wonder.
Yep.
As will change your life every day. Love's in Need of Love. Whole Songs in the Key of Life album, Tony. You'll do it.
You remind me of what Toni Morrison said, that she refuses to look away, and she refuses to not be shocked, right? Because nowadays, at least I hear a lot of people saying, you see these horrible things, and they'll say, we always knew they did this. They've always been doing this. And I say, I know, but I refuse to stop being shocked. I have to be shocked every day. I never want this to be normal, right? That's what Toni Morrison said.
It shouldn't be normal.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, we shouldn't be surprised by good either. Like when I think about the ways that I have to cultivate hope, one of them is by concentrating on some of the good happening in the world. Like I try to go find good things. Like who's doing some good out there? Because the news won't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
The first 5 minutes of the news is so traumatic. You're just like, is there anything good happening out there? Do you have a feel-good story? Because most of it is who got in Atlanta, who got shot here, what happened in this community. But I think we have to be intentional too about amplifying some good things that people are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In thinking about creative maladjustment, I thought of Miguel Cervantes in Don Quixote when he's writing about madness, right? He said, what is madness in a lunatic world? What is really madness? And he said there has a few things that he calls madness, but he said the ultimate madness is seeing the world as it is and not as it should be, right? And I think creatively maladjusted people, right? You're maladjusted because you're seeing the world as it should be, not as it is. So there's a disconnect between reality and your desire for that reality to be. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the people of hope are called to see the world, right?
But that's so Kenyan, because in his last speech, he said, I see something.
That's right. Yeah.
I've been to the mountaintop. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land. I think that's visionary leadership. That is a person who's creatively maladjusted, that even though I know there are terrible things happening here, and I'm not denying that, I also can see something different. And you can see that in people too. Like I talk to people sometimes and I'm like, you don't have to be this way though, Whatever it is that caused this, you can get rid of it. You can be healed from it. And people weren't born that way.
No.
So if someone has learned hate and they've learned bigotry, if they're open to it, they can get rid of it. Well, the creatively maladjusted person sees that and will provide some openings for people to get out of that. Now, it's a graced place now. Not everybody, like I talk to friends and they're like, go on with your creatively maladjusted self. We're going to let those folks stay the way they are. Because that's just, right now, it's hard for people to contextualize to them that I have to help racist people not be racist. That's hard to think about. But if you think about it in terms of even the survival of the world, as we were just talking about, racism will end the world if we don't get rid of it. There's so much violence attached to it, so much militarism attached to it, poverty of spirit and poverty of resources, that it will cause us to participate in co-annihilation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a friend who's a pastor in Minneapolis, and I was talking to him after Rene Good's shooting, and he was going out with the interfaith prayer, and I told him, remember to pray for the shooter. Remember to pray for the ICE agent who shot her. Because in our faith, in our tradition, we know where Rene Good is. Horrible, but we know where she is. He's still here, and he needs the shooter. He partially thought I was kidding, but I was saying, I'm serious. We have to pray for the men who did this. If anybody needs Jesus to transform their lives, right?
I know, Tony. There's people watching right now that don't think you're serious. Because that's it's a hard concept to think. Okay, you want me to consider this person who did this thing. The only thing is, like, what's the Bojine? This young man that was killed in Dallas. People always point back to, how his family, Botham Jean, is that correct? Bojine, I just put it all together. Isn't that Southern? Just all together. Yeah, Botham Jean. He was killed, and his family was hugging on the person that killed him. And everybody was like, oh, that's so wonderful. And then there were people in community who were saying, that's a lot to expect of that family.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, in those moments, people have to come in even when a family can't do that and be the people who say, what happened in this situation? And we also have to be careful, I think, too, that we're not so there that we forget the trauma of what happened to people in those situations. I think sometimes we rush so quickly to that place of forgiveness that we don't allow people to deal with trauma. I don't know about you, but there have been times in my life where people have done things to me that it took me 3 to 5 years to forgive. It may have been to my detriment. It hurt me because forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's actually cleansing for me to forgive. You know, when I've forgiven people in my life, I found out it healed me. It was never about me absolving them of guilt for anything. It was about me being cleansed, because unforgiveness corrupts me, no matter what it is. But it's hard, though, because this country has been dealing with these isms, and this world has been dealing with these problems for a long time, and it's looking more and more hateful as we deal with it. As we look at what's happening in Minnesota, and you think about Rene Good, but you also think about the people who were killed by ICE agents before Rene Good. Why didn't we know about those folks? Why do we know about Rene Good but don't know about those folks? So that, even to black people in this country, is a question and a problem. That there were people who were not white women who've been killed by agents on these streets, but people don't know. Well, it's not because people are just intentionally obtuse. It's because, what does the media give us? What do we learn about? What's told to us as being important? When I hear about that, it didn't make me angry. It just said we have some more work to do. That my brother Keith been dead for days and nobody knew in the mainstream media, and they didn't mention it. But this is what brought people out to the streets to protest, which is a great question, by the way. What prompts people to protest? And is there even some bias in what causes us to protest? I mean, I hate to ask the question to people, but I'll ask it as I do.
At what point, right? At what point is it intolerable, right? Why did you tolerate the 20 plus people?
Yes.
So, shameless plug for the Center for Public Theology and Public Policy. We have the research. We've done the research. I'm the director of research. We know the names of the 20 other people they've killed and many other evil things that have been done. We know. But why did you have to take a white woman?
Why'd you tolerate it?
In Charlottesville, right? Why was it that the whole thing was about race? And Heather Heyer, who was there, was killed, and then there's a street name after her, and the movement very quickly became around her, and obviously not to dishonor their
Oh,
what
no.
they did. No, they
No, I'm
yeah.
grateful for Viola Luisa. I'm grateful for the freedom riders, our Jewish neighbors who are freedom riders,
Yeah.
and people who, but really, if you look at somebody and these laws do not adversely impact them and they are dead, Viola Luisa protesting and killed by the Klan, I mean, she's a martyr, and I'm grateful for her courage.
Yeah.
Now, if there had been 20 women who weren't white women who were killed before that, and we don't know their names, but we know her name, I'm going to ask why. But I know why. And I think it is a valid question to ask, what prompts my outrage? What prompts me wanting to protest? And sometimes, for people, we're willing to protest based on look, based on race, and we have to ask the question. I'm asking, why isn't there more talk about what's happening in Sudan, what's happening in Congo? Because if we address what's happening in Congo, we'll have to give up some cell phones and some computers to protest, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Because y'all know we go to bed at night with these phones. They're our beloveds.
And that's decades of oppression that
Absolutely.
literally all of our hands are
right on it.
Yep.
And so you wonder why we're not hearing more about mass displacement, millions of people displaced in Sudan and Congo over decades that we rarely hear about.
So, and I'll close with this, and then we'll have some questions from those who are here. But as somebody who is so creatively maladjusted in a best way possible, you're looking at this every day. You're facing this every day. You face the frustration of training people, year after year, and yet you're still hopeful. You're still loving. What are some practices that the rest of us could imitate that could keep this discipline?
Prayer and fasting. I'm so serious. I mean, I
believe it.
For me.
I believe it.
I used to fast once a week, and I got away from it, and now I've had to return. Just because, I would like to say it's some deep, deep spiritual reason. But one of the main things is it helps me stay in my right mind. And it helps me maintain hope, just to step away from not just food, but sometimes when I say I'm going to fast from a certain TV show, I realize I need to stop watching it, period, because it feeds into darkness. So I used to watch, I guess I can't mention the name of the show. It's CM. It's a show about unsubs and criminals. And I used to watch it all the time, watch marathons. And I kid you not, I went for a walk in my neighborhood, and I saw a big black bag, and I looked at the person I was walking with. I said, it's a body. She said, girl, that's not a body. You need to stop watching that show. Well, I was permeating my mind with all of this darkness. But I'm not one of those people that'll go to people and say, you need to stop watching all of that stuff. Just for me. For me to be maladjusted and creatively maladjusted and to be more loving, I really have to pay attention to, maybe I have a sensitivity, I don't know. But prayer and fasting. Remembering my ancestors. I think a lot about my grandmothers and the things that they lived through and the things that they were able to endure. But that also helps me be maladjusted to this idea of resilience. If it's one word that I can't stand right now, it's resilience. For some reason, it just gets me down on the inside that we're teaching our children to be resilient instead of getting rid of injustice. Makes me sick.
That's right, yeah.
It's making me cry now. That instead of getting rid of the things that harm our communities, we're teaching resilience.
Yeah.
Why do our children have to be strong, Tony? Instead of us getting rid of poverty, instead of us getting rid of racism. Why am I teaching a 5-year-old how to be resilient in the face of injustice with my grown self? instead of getting rid of that injustice. Think about the phrases
Oh, yeah.
that we
yeah.
burden our children with: at risk, resilient. I saw a quote the other day that said, don't only raise strong women, be a strong woman. I was like, no, thank you. I don't know about any other women, but I'm sick of being strong. About people. What causes us to have to be strong but injustice and inhumanity? Right? It's sort of like the culture we create where we say we need to teach women how not to be raped. Instead of saying, why don't we teach men
Not to rape. Yeah.
not to rape? But this is what we do in society that's unhealthy.
Yeah.
We try to accommodate injustice instead of saying, no, I'm not going to keep teaching my children how to be resilient. I'm going to teach them how to be humane. I'm going to teach them how to be wise.
Yeah.
But how about we get rid of this injustice once and for all?
Yeah.
And as long as we acquiesce to this language, we won't do that. I really believe we have to be maladjusted to language.
Yeah. 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 Well, we could go on for a lot longer, but I'm sure there's
I got all
there are
night.
questions.
What time y'all want to go?
Are there questions in the audience? Do you have a microphone that we can hand out to? Are there questions? Yeah, Benji.
Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. West. I'm imagining that the feeling of anger can be very familiar to the work that you do. And we've seen Inside Out, and we know anger is just one of many emotions, and it is a helpful emotion at times.
It is.
And so I'm curious if anger can both mobilize but also leave us stuck. What do you do with your anger for the sake of the work and mission and calling that you've committed your life to?
Thank you for that question. I don't know if you all have really ran into deep people. They think they deep. And you tell them something like you're fearful or you're angry, and they start quoting and tell you, you shouldn't be that way. God has not given us the spirit of fear. I'm like, I know what God didn't give me, but I'm fearful. Please just don't quote scripture at me like that. I'm trying to tell you what I'm going through. Can you be with me with what I'm going through instead of quoting text like that? Thank you. Thank you. Because I don't know. I don't know if Jesus would just throw scripture out of me. What happened to our What Would Jesus Do bracelets? But I think about how it's okay to be angry, but sin not. But then people would just come to me and say, don't be angry. I'm saying, that's not valid. I can be angry as long as my anger does not facilitate the things that I'm seeking to conquer. So if I'm angry, I want to cultivate it into something good. And it's okay. I mean, I dare not look at people and say, don't be angry by what we're seeing in society. I would challenge us to channel our anger and develop an approach that's infused with love, which is not passive. Love is powerful. Love is active. Love works for justice. And so I would take my anger and shift it into that. Now, sometimes for me, it takes me days, sometimes weeks to do that. There have been moments where I've been angry about something, and I just had to stay in my house. Good thing I work from home, because I really have had to spend time by myself to deal with the anger I felt about some things. If I would have got on social media, it wouldn't have been good. I'm telling you, the King Center would have revoked my certificate to be a nonviolence trainer. Would say this is over for her. But I don't think we do that enough. Take time with myself to really investigate what I'm feeling about that and see how I can shift it, not get rid of the anger, but shift it for good. I wasn't always like that. I just learned when I hear certain news, I'm going to need some time by myself to process that. When Trayvon Martin was killed and the person who killed him was found not guilty, I had to be still because I had such a rage inside of me. And I know a lot of people feel that way. You just don't know what to do. But so often, instead of investigating what do, we just go out and do anything. and I have to take time with my anger if I feel like it's going to be a destructive anger. But then I want to channel it too into some constructive action. If people think Dr. King and those other folks in the movement were never angry, I want you all to look back. Dr. King had an encounter when he was a child growing up that caused him to question society. It's one of the main reasons he wanted to work to end racism. And so it's in the channeling, I think.
Yeah. Lucas?
Thank you, Dr. West. Being in Divinity School and some of my fellow students are preparing for Christian ministry and thinking about the event in Minnesota with regards to protesters in the Baptist church, I wonder from the principles of nonviolence, what are some of the lessons that we can learn, perhaps some practical suggestions, both for the faith leaders in that situation, as well as for protesters from that standpoint, anything that we can learn or implement.
You're talking about the agent that's also a pastor? And the people stormed or came into the church quickly?
Correct. That particular, yes.
Okay. Listen, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the reconciling. Often with people of faith, and particularly those who say they share what I believe, I'm trying to figure out how behavior is reconciled with confession. And so for me, I would hope that there are some faith leaders in Minnesota who, the way that they approach that issue is to ask to talk with that pastor. That's one place. But there's also the response to it, like going into the church. I would have to see a video because I don't believe the language I hear all the time. Like they say they stormed the church. I haven't seen a video of it. So I don't know if they stormed. You know, that language makes you think people just came bum rushing in. I don't know whether or not they've come in to protest, and they did it in what would be perceived as a violent manner. I do think sometimes there's a conversation that can be had. I'm not sure if it could be had in that situation. I also understand, though, that people are fearful, and their family members and their community members are being snatched off the street. And so I always take care with that because I'm not living through that directly. I can't imagine what that's like. And I can't imagine the emotions they were feeling when they ran into that church upon learning that someone who's a faith leader in community is also perpetuating those injustices in their community. I'm not sure. I would say to you that in the interest of nonviolence, the first step being information gathering, I would have to learn more about what went into their decision making around that, because I don't want to judge, if I can phrase it that way, how they responded. Because I have never had, I don't know if it was their family, I have never had a family member disappeared that I know of. I don't know what that would feel like. So I'm going to find out more tonight and come to class tomorrow. No, seriously, that's another thing we have to learn to do. So let me find out more about that and come back prepared to discuss that further. That's what people are experiencing in their homes and communities. It's real. It's no trivial thing. People are really distressed, and they're hurt. And all they've learned of Kenyan nonviolence is go out and protest. They haven't learned to adhere to principles or steps. So if they haven't been trained, I would advise training. There's nothing wrong with training. Sometimes we think it's something that should be shunned, but it actually equips us to get results.
Did you have a question, or are you saying, Rob? And on that point, right, if we read all the books and look at the history, the work that Reverend King did during the Civil Rights era, it was hard work in community, a lot of thinking, a lot of training, and so that's why, as YDS, on behalf of YDS, we thank you that you're here to continue that tradition and train these future faith leaders. And even for those of you watching at home, you may, she's available for training. You can Google her, Vonnetta West, 2 N's and 2 T's, and you can invite her to train your communities. But until tomorrow, thank you again.
Thank you.
Please join me in thanking Reverend Vonnetta.
Thank you.